about myself, and I'll tell you a story about that question. I'll relate it to charges somewhere or other.
How are you?
Aren't you in improv?
Why grow a beard?
What? Oh, this is great. Perfect. Why grow a beard? Okay. And I've sort of told some of this before. I'll try to skip the parts that I've said before, but this is my I can do whatever I want beard. I make a joke at comedy shows that I go to now that I'm like an off-duty Civil War reenactor. Which is, yeah, and you know what? At comedy shows it gets a laugh. Here it's just like, we feel your pain, sir. We feel your pain. Okay, so I joined the Army when I was 18 years old. I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I went to basic training there. And I was trained to be in the Army Reserve. Now, you train with everybody, whether you're in the Reserves or the National Guard or you're going to be in the active duty Army. Everybody gets the same training. You go to whatever place, and I spent 13 weeks there, and I learned the 8 weeks of running and shooting and stabbing and throwing grenades and all that stuff. Learned all that stuff, and then I learned landmine warfare and explosives having to do with blowing giant holes in the ground. And I learned about building miles and miles and miles of fences out of various materials like barbed wire and concertina wire and every kind of wire you got, and also how to blow those fences up once you build them, because we're supposed to have the fences and the other guys are not supposed to have fences, so that's what we do. And it was 1998 and Bill Clinton was president, so there wasn't any danger of being in a war, really, not so much. A little bit in the Balkans, but not a big deal. I joined the Army because I read the book Sergeant Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein, which is a book basically about civic duty disguised as a science fiction novel. And I thought, oh, I should do this, and I'll straighten my life out, and I'll figure everything out, get in the Army. Turns out that the Army just doesn't fix everything for you. This is the thing that I learned. I thought it'd be like Full Metal Jacket, but not like Full Metal Jacket for the Vincent D'Onofrio character who went insane. I thought it'd be like Full Metal Jacket, like for Matthew Modine, who was a wise ass, but then he learned something, and then at the other end, he was maybe a little shell shocked or whatever, but also learned a lot about Army journalism. I don't know. I thought it would be like that, but it turns out you go in and you bring all your problems with you, and they can teach you to run, and they can teach you to stab a tire. A lot of things, the thing you do in the Army is you stab a lot of tires. I think tires are harder to stab than people, so if you get really good at stabbing tires, then you're like an excellent human being stabber. So they teach you all of these things, but I felt like I was cheating in some way. I felt like, is this like the Army light? Like it said, like I didn't have any trouble doing the physical things. I know it doesn't look like it now. And I didn't have any trouble learning it's actually very simple to blow things up. It's also simple to make mistakes and blow yourself up, but it's not like there's a lot to learn. It's not like the manual is like this big. It is very tiny for your average explosive device. And it just turns out that it's like super easy to make war. And this is the thing that I learned when I joined the Army, and I was like, oh, so I'm not going to become a better individual. I'm going to become a very small part in a very large machine, the point of which is to make war. And that machine doesn't operate very well in a vacuum that does not contain war. In fact, it just starts to fall apart weirdly, and you feel like you don't have a reason to be there because we're just pretending we're at war when we're not actually at war. Right now, people join the military and we're at war, and we've been at war for 12 years now, and that is 13 years. And it's nuts, and it's real for those people, but it was never real for me. And when I got back and did my reserve duty, I felt like I was pretending, and I felt like there was no reason for me to be there, and I felt like I hadn't really learned anything. And I quit as soon as my minimum amount of time in service was over. I had thought that I was going to join the reserves because it was the fastest way to deploy right out of high school, because they needed reserve people. And then I thought I would serve in the reserves the minimum time, and then I would join the active duty army, and I would go overseas, or I would do whatever it is that you do, live on a base. But I never did that, and I kind of developed a real strong distaste for giant explosions. I once blew a hole in the ground that was as big as my childhood home or larger, and I thought, this is not a thing that I want to be employ myself in doing. And the people who have served in the military, if there's anybody here, I have more respect for them than just about anybody on planet, because it's extremely difficult and it's so boring that it's so boring, punctuated by explosions, that you can't believe that anybody could do it and come out all right on the other end. So I have a lot of respect for those people, but as soon as I quit, you're not allowed to have a full beard in the Army anymore because of gas masks. Like, you go back to the Civil War, and Ulysses S. Grant has a giant, luxurious beard, and they all have beards because there was no such thing as gas warfare, chemical warfare. So now you have to be clean shaven, you can have a tiny mustache, but so that a gas mask can fit around your face. And the first thing I did when I quit the Army was I stopped shaving. So that's my story. Thank you very much for the